the greatest threat to the Islamic Republic is not the United States and Israel. It's not even the millions of Iranians, people in the streets. Those are huge threats, but the greatest threat has always been them losing their last remaining supporters. This is the greatest threat, and this explains a lot of their policies and a lot of their strategies. And they desperately need to show that it's not the Iranian people who are the victims, it's the Basijis who are the victims. So that explains that image, and that also explains why they're sending Basijis to the universities to be beaten, so that they could show their followers, like, look, we're not the violent ones, they're the violent ones.
Can I go to the next person on the list? I
Okay.
have Joseph next.
Yeah,
Joseph.
Hey, one of the things that I follow a lot of the military stuff on YouTube, and this whole thing about the deep fake. It's also in what they show on state TV in Iran, but specifically when it comes to Iran, the AI videos are just outright. They're laughable from my part, because yeah, you're going to put missiles on the USS Gerald R. No, it ain't happening. But they are showing a lot that there seems to be a ramp up from the sources that I'm following. And also this just popped across my feed. Anti-U.S. pro-terror extremist Kala Walsh defends Iranian regime crackdown on protesters. This is the problem we're facing here in the U.S. is that we have, for lack of a better term, a fifth column actively supporting these regimes. Now, because I'm a free speech absolutist, fine, they can say it. But what we're facing here, especially from what I would call the political left, is if I dare say anything, I'm a racist. I am, basically they assign me a moral failing for pointing out that this person's wrong. And that's really the biggest tactic by the political left. It's not that what you're saying is wrong, but because you're saying it, you have a moral failing. Also, speaking on what we're seeing kind of as the war footing of what's moving into the region right now, I saw a report late last night that the U.S. has moved all of its non-essential personnel out. So I have a feeling once we see them move out, we're going to see full-on war, because this is the first step to get our diplomatic staff out of harm's way. And if what's happening is going to happen with the U.S. making attacks on Iran, they definitely don't want their staff in Lebanon, because Hezbollah will go nuts, because the Hezbollah will lose their funding.
All right, let's go through quickly through everyone else. But because you mentioned AI, I just want to show you a video of the Islamic Republic closing the Strait of Hormuz. All right, so I don't know if you guys know this reference, but just wanted to quickly show that.
Okay, the problem with that was, I'd like to finish it out with the U.S. one of Gnarly Burke launching missiles right into his balls. I'm sorry, that's where my mind immediately went.
Okay.
So next on the list, Jeffrey raised his hand at some point, but I think it was just a response, so I'm just double checking. And if not Jeffrey, then I have Daijo next.
Okay, Daijo. Let's focus on questions, guys, so that we could go through the list, because the time, we're getting close. Daijo?
What's up, guys? I was going to say, address something you said earlier, Armin, about so-called great replacement, and how it's really more of a replacement of values more than anything else. Yeah, it is a replacement of values. Definitely, that's one way to argue. It's a good form of argument, but the bottom line is, especially when you're talking about Europe, the demographics are shifting, and they're simply going to accelerate as time goes on. And the fact of the matter is, saying just practically speaking, I know where you're coming from, but practically speaking, when you talk about replacement of values versus race, that's an argument that's going to become less and less tenable as time goes on, because people are getting pissed off. I mean, like you said, anti-white racism is a problem. Yeah, you're right. You're damn right, it's a problem. And people are tribing up. They've been told for so long. Whites have been told for so long that we're the fucking problem, that we got shit to answer for. We need to get in the back of the bus, and it's making people feel like they have to identify with their race simply as a means of survival.
So what's the question?
I'm just making a statement. Like you have, that's just the thing. People are going to tribe up, and they're going to have a nasty reaction to this if they don't get up. So what do we do about that? I mean, because Jews feel that way. They feel like they need to have solidarity, which I agree with. But white people are too. Not just white people, but white people mostly, because the demographics are majority white. So I'm just saying, like,
is there? Let me ask this, and let's try to keep it short. I'm genuinely asking. I don't know. Is there such thing as a white identity? Because I know there's a Scottish identity, there's like an Irish identity, there's a German identity, there's a French identity. These are identities that happen to be white. There's an American identity. I don't know. I don't think that's a white identity, but we have identities that happen to be white. But is there a collective white identity? Like, it might be. I'm genuinely asking because I don't know. I don't think there is, but I'm happy to be educated.
Yes, there is. There is a collective white identity.
And you share that with like Russians?
Yes.
So there's a collective. So you're telling me there's a collective white solidarity that a white American shares and feels with like a white Russian person? That does exist?
Yeah, it does. There is a white identity. I identify as white. Most definitely.
My sense is that there is no strong solidarity over skin color among white people. There is a solidarity based on culture between German white people, between Italian white people, between French white people, between Irish white people, between Scottish white people, between British white people, because there's a lot of history, there's a lot of culture, there's there's a shared history, there's roots there, right? But I don't think there is a collective shared bond between white people over skin color, given how different, for example, a French person is when it comes to collective identity to a Russian person. In the same way that we don't have a collective black identity. Like, for example, like, I don't know, a black Nigerian doesn't really feel like, I don't think there is
there is certainly a collective black identity. There's certainly a collective black identity. This has been a movement since the early 70s. Like, it's not monolithic.
Yeah.
That's a very America-centric way of looking at it, because we're talking about a black identity in America, okay? But in Africa, for example, there's no sense of black solidarity between people, I don't know, between Kenya and Nigeria over unity over being black. I don't know. I don't think
No, there is and there isn't. It's complicated, but
I think there is in America. I think there is among different black people in America. There's a bond over being black, but not among black people of the world. I don't think there is such a thing.
That is a startling thing to say.
That's what I hear from black people around the world. What do you mean that's a startling thing to hear? This is me listening to black people who are not American.
I also listen to black people around the world, and I very often hear a strong sentiment of solidarity, as much as there is also intergroup racism.
We tell you why there is no sense among many black communities. There's no sense of connection over being black, because all you see is black, right? So in places in the world that generally everybody is black, there is no sense of connection over with me and somebody else for being black, because there's no nobody to be, there's no other, right? If I want to have a connection with you over something that we shared, it needs to be something that we're not to define ourselves. If you grew up everything and everybody like in a village and all the time you're saying only black people,
Sure. No,
I don't feel yeah.
Pan-Africanism as a movement has existed for more than a century.
Africanism includes non-black countries like Egypt, for example, if you're talking about pan-Africanism, right? So, but yeah,
There's
is
also
I think it's
Afrofuturism. Like, these are very
yeah,
long-standing movements, like,
yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm not
and
I'm
I'm not
not
begrudging their movement. I'm just
mm.
saying that sentiment exists.
I didn't. Yeah, yeah. I'm not. I'm
Yeah, that's
talking about this. Hold on, Digital, just a second. I'm not. So you guys are misunderstanding me, because I'm not saying that this attitude does not exist at all. I'm talking about how common and prevalent it is among global black people. Because yeah, I also understand that white nationalism is a thing. I'm not saying that there are zero people who I mean, there are people. I'm not talking about it as a negative. Okay, I understand. For example, Dajjal identifies with that. I'm just saying I don't see it as strong as these other identities. So, for example, I believe the Nigerian identity is a much stronger collective identity than the black identity. Like, I don't think a Nigerian relates to being black as an identity as much as they relate to being Nigerian as an identity. Okay, maybe you relate to being a black as an identity more in America than you would in Nigeria. So I'm not suggesting it doesn't exist in the same way as being white does exist as a collective identity, because we just saw it. Dajjal said to us right here in front of us that he identifies with it. But I'm saying the French identity is something that is much more common. The British identity is more common. The Italian identity is more common. So I'm not arguing for its lack of existence. I'm just saying they are deeper, more defined, more relatable, stronger culturally. Like the culturally, you could point to something, right? When it comes to the white identity, what is the set of traditions or culture that I could point to, right? There's not, but when I look at the French identity, there's so much to point to. When it comes to the Scottish identity, there's so much to point to. But what are the customs of white people? What are the traditions of white people? You might want to say that it's like, I don't know, Enlightenment values. Enlightenment values are a Western European tradition. It's not even all of Europe, let alone Russia, right? So Enlightenment values is Western European. It's not all Europe, and there are many, and it's definitely not Russian, right? So there is nothing that I could point to in my mind that is a deep historical bond between white people. I'm not saying that you shouldn't identify with it. Everybody could do whatever they want, and there's nothing wrong with turning that as part of their identity that you celebrate and you're proud of. I'm just noticing that it's not as strong as these other white identities. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. I do. I get where you're coming from. But the thing is,
By the way, I'm
yeah,
being descriptive. This is not normative. I'm not saying there's wrong
yeah,
or right. I'm just noticing. I'm just looking and saying
right.
this is strong. This is not that very strong. And it does. And you don't have to go with the strongest identity. If you relate with an identity that is not as common, that's your choice. If it resonates with you, it resonates with you.
Where you come from, I feel you. But the thing is, yes, it is an identity. It's definitely an identity. And there is truth to what you say in terms of individual identities, such as British, French, German,
These are not
Russian, etc.
individual identities. These are collective identities. British is collective.
Individual groups, individual subsets of white people. That's what I mean, as opposed to just identifying as white. Yeah, I see what you're saying, and there is some truth to that. But the thing is that is changing. It is a growing sentiment. It's always
Yeah,
been
I agree
around.
with that. I agree with that. In response, you're going to make white identity become more significant when you have anti-white racism. It becomes more of a thing in response. So I
Yes,
agree with that. When people
that's what
are targeting you for being white, then it will turn into a stronger identity. Yes, you're right.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. It's simply a matter of defense mechanism, and it's becoming more and more. That was my point. I mean, even
Yeah.
Ayn Rand, the ultimate individualist, said that that she is very aware of her Jewish identity simply because of the fact that other people are aware of it and do not like
Right.
it, and she felt like a sense a
Okay.
defense mechanism. I'm just saying that's my point. That it's a growing sentiment, and
And
you
it's justified, and it's justified because it's a response to an attack.
exactly. And the Democrat, right? Like I said, it comes down to demographics and Western demographics, and white people are the majority, and white people as the majority, we're not just going to let ourselves get displaced.
I am more concerned about individual discrimination. So if it's forced displacement, that should be stopped. But displacement, if it was natural and if it wasn't being forced, to me, that's not just a thing that happens. But if it's forced and engineered and demographically engineered, it should be something that is being resisted. But
we know it's not natural because of Muslim migration. That's the issue.
Okay,
here. That's what we're dealing with.
Yeah. But just last point, I just want to avoid being like one of those people that is against race mixing because for the sake of saving the white race, right? So this is like an anti, like that is something that we need to avoid, right? If somebody is pushing something against you and trying to demographically re-engineer society, you should stand against that. But if something naturally is happening, like white people falling in love with black people and getting married, and that is something that nobody should be fighting against, that's a natural thing that is happening, that is something that should not be resisted. Okay.
Yeah, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about demographic replacement, mass Muslim migration, which is what is doing it. And it's not just a threat to white people, by the way. It's a threat to everybody in the West who cares about Western values, classical liberal values.
Yeah, let me just respond. Cat lady saying, "Duh." Hold. Yeah, you just cat lady in the chat saying, "Duh." He knows Armin. I'm not just talking. Obviously, this is being recorded. I'm not just talking to Dajjal. I just want to make sure that we mention to other people. I have an audience that is not just Dajjal. So I need to tell people that if we're like what we're standing against and what we're not standing against. If we're talking about protecting white people against discrimination and and basically demographic engineering, we are not basically standing against natural things that happen, that people of different ethnicities fall in love with each other and having babies. We're not going to go full like those crazy people who are against who see people who are naturally falling in love. I need to clarify that that's not what we're talking about.
Right, but again, that's not what I was talking about. But I know you're just making a general point.
I wouldn't be friends with Dajjal if I thought he thinks like that. Okay, so I know that he's not like a dumb fucking racist. So I know that. So I consider Dajjal to be my friend. So I know he's not like that. But yeah,
I think we've sufficiently made the point for people on YouTube. Can we get a quick response from Jeffrey and move on?
Yeah, quick, 30 seconds, please.
Yeah, I think what he's talking about is weaponized childbirth by certain groups like La Raza and La Mecha is very similar to weaponized childbirth as it was defined by Arafat or later on, right before he was killed, Gaddafi. I think that's what he's talking about. It's not about like we have to maintain white people to be pure. He's saying there are certain groups that legit weaponize childbirth.
Yes.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, of course. Okay, Dajjal, let's move to the let's go down the list.
Next on the list is
because you have to deal with it or else it gets worse. So
all right, let's go.
Shy. I have Shy next.
Oh, really? Wow. We talked about so many things. I was going to say that. Oh man, I'm turning a blank right now. But I just want to say that as long as the threat of some kind of an Islamic takeover, and how did these Islamists take over the government of Iran? Now, that's a history lesson. But as long as there's a reduced threat, I mean, Islam started 1500 years ago. There's a lot of different competing ideologies. It's just like you don't want Nazis taking over somewhere and starting to, like, round up Jews in the same way. You don't want Islamists to take over and start, ISISing everybody and kill. As long as we're So the Iranian Revolution is going to take care of a lot of that, like set back a lot of Islamism all around the world for a long time. And then we obviously have to stay vigilant, but obviously there's going to be a backlash in whatever the UK or wherever else in New York, wherever this is like rearing its ugly head. And then the more you sort of educate and do ex-Muslim sort of education or things like that, then things start to kind of even out, and new generations come, new independent thinkers rise. So my concern, there's always threats, and I developed a new appreciation for the Israeli-Palestinian conflict because at least we're dealing with it's a contained issue. Let's say in Israel, Islam, 20% of the population, half of them are not, as half of the Israeli Arab population is not concerned with Islamism, or at least half. We know that. And this is also controversial stuff, so I don't want to go down that route. But I'm just saying that the Israeli-Palestinian conflict is a terrible thing. It's violent, but I just developed a new appreciation for it, given that there's this desire of Islamists to try to take over the government all around the world, which still exists, and we don't want to let that happen. But with the Iranian Revolution, I think that's gonna lose a lot of wind. The sales are going. Yeah,
So
that's what I wanted to say.
yeah, okay. I thought we're doing only questions, but okay, thank you for that.
Yeah, no question.
Okay. Well, there should have been
Yeah,
questions.
questions.
Oh, okay. Then let's just go through the list then.
Okay, next on the list I have Danny. Oh, also Samantha. Okay,
And Nilbani also raised her hand. I saw that.
Yes, I saw that too.
Okay.
Okay, I'll just try to be quick so we can get to them. I want to respond a bit about America First people that Sapir mentioned earlier, but she had to go, unfortunately. So as Cat Lady said in the chat, America First originally came during World War II from some mix of isolationists, nationalists, and anti-Semites, but they disbanded then with the Pearl Harbor attack. A true policy that benefits America does include allies, because allies help. Like if you give Israelis guns for free and then the Israelis use those guns to shoot America's enemies, that is better for America than if they had sent their own soldiers with those same guns to kill those same enemies. That's why mercenaries, as a general rule, get paid for their services. And America has interests outside of North America because maintaining its position as a global superpower includes making sure trade is as free as possible for its entire sphere of influence. Basically, if you're playing chess, you can't just look at one corner of the board and decide that you're going to play only over there. So the basic idea that the isolationists put out is kind of the same then as it is today. America should do only things that benefit America. I have some sympathy for people who grew up seeing Vietnam, Iraq, Afghanistan, whatever, where the US achieved next to nothing, and are concerned that it will be more of the same when America does more things outside its borders. I don't think people saying this about Iran are speaking from that point, because it's been very clear that intervention in Iran doesn't even include boots on the ground. So the cost to America would not be the same. And I see it more as a civil war within the Republican Party, and America First is just their way to dress up some serious anti Semitic and anti America ideas. Right.